Welcome, my friends, to the land of Columbia, the world of BioShock Infinite, a truly remarkable landscape, not only for its intriguing story, captivating gameplay, and critical acclaim, citing it as one of the greatest games of this very decade, but especially fascinating recently because BioShock Infinite has become a speed game where cheating is not only allowed, but approved by the community. Alright, that's quite the lead there, but it is true to an extent, and it may not be as absurd as it sounds. You see, in BioShock Infinite, there are a wide variety of gears you can pick up, some of which appear randomly in drops scattered throughout the game, some of which are useful in the speedrun, many which are not. The gear that inspired this new modification is one called the Hill Runner's Hat, a hat that, when equipped, gives you a speed boost for 5 seconds after your shield breaks upon taking damage. Of course, this is a speed game, and speedrunners always find ways of damaging their own shields to go faster, using a number of explosive weapons, essentially allowing you to repeat this self-boosting method throughout the game, something that, if done well, can save nearly 2 minutes throughout the run. Not only this, but there are a number of skips which require the effect from the Hill Runner's Hat, saving another 6 minutes in the run, for a grand total of 8 minutes saved, a pretty significant deal of time. The Hill Runner's Hat is simply required for a fast speedrun of BioShock Infinite, and required to get out of this very box at this very time. Getting it out of other boxes at other moments in the run just don't save as much time, which is of course the ultimate goal of speedrunning. So what's the problem? Well, this gear, the Hill Runner's Hat, is a rare item drop, which means it only comes out of a box roughly 1 in 50 times. Right around the 30-minute mark of the any percent speedrun, there's a convenient drop box which can contain the Hill Runner's Hat about 1 in 50 or 2% of the time. It's using a death warp trick only a few minutes later, so you really absolutely need it to proceed with the speedrun. Of course, if you don't get it, you can create a save and check the box over and over until it has the Hill Runner's Hat, a strategy you're seeing right now, but each check takes about 4 or 5 seconds, 12 or so per minute. 50 checks would take around 4 minutes. And if my math is correct, 49 out of 50 to the power of 50, 50 checks would still only have a 64% chance of getting the item. That's about 1 in 3 runs where you won't get the item after 50 checks. 100 checks, which takes 8 minutes, the overall time you save from the item altogether, still only has an 87% chance of getting the item. Suffice to say, a lot of speedrun attempts end right here, early on enough that you don't get to play the many fun parts of the speed game, but after 30 minutes it's enough time sunk into the run that it gets annoying. And pretty much every BioShock Infinite runner agreed, to the point many people stopped running the game altogether. So with that in mind, and the desire to breathe life into a speed game with which many had been feeling disenfranchised or bored lately, and much community discussion over the past few months, the BioShock Infinite community decided to allow a mod in the game that guaranteed the Hill Runner's Hat will be the item you get from this box, allowing all the runners to forget about this 1 in 50 luck element and proceed with their runs. The community also decided to allow this not as its own category, modded percent or whatever gimmicky name you often see speedrun communities come up with. Rather, they chose to simply make this the new normal, allowing it in the any percent category of the game, alongside speedruns that did not use the mod. Obviously, this wasn't completely unanimous. BioShock Infinite speedrunner Jarko goes into good detail about the way the community came to the decision in a video on his channel called The BioShock Infinite Problem, which I definitely recommend checking out and we'll be using perspectives from in this video. But I think there are compelling arguments or things to think about on both sides of the coin here, so I want to chat a bit about those. The first side of the coin involves discussing one of the most well-known speedrunning soliloquies in modern times. All the categories are arbitrary. A video uploaded by the Narcissa Wright in late 2015 lamenting or considering varying changes over time in both rules and community standards for Ocarina of Time speedrunning. Narcissa uses examples including the frequent switch between the IQ console and the virtual console as the fastest version of the game, different controller adapters which may or may not be used, and other practices which may or may not be allowed in Ocarina of Time speedrunning as arguments for why speedrunning is such a love-hate activity, one where you question what you're doing all the time. Why are you investing so much time, effort, and passion into something that's so arbitrarily defined, and community standards can change like the winds of tomorrow? So let's look at some games or competitions that are universally accepted as legitimate or worthwhile, but might also be seen as arbitrary. I always think that, for example, the premier event of the Olympic Games, the 100-meter dash, can just as easily be seen as arbitrary. The meter, after all, is an arbitrarily defined measure of distance, originally defined in 1793 as 1/10,000,000th of the distance from the equator to the North Pole. Then over the years, an official meter stick was created to be the exact definition. Then in 1960, it was changed, redefined in terms of a number of wavelengths of an emission line of Krypton 86. And finally, the definition we use today, made in 1983, as the length of the path traveled by light in a vacuum in 1/299,000,000th, 792nd, 458th of a second. Alright, that's pretty darn arbitrary, is it not? And why 100 meters, other than it being a nice round number? Why not 90, or 110, or 250, or 500? Why do we race at 100, 200, 400, 800, and 1500 meters instead of any other categories? Perhaps the world's most famous race of all, the marathon, is run at an arbitrary distance based on the legendary Greek soldier Pheidippides, who ran from the Battle of Marathon to Athens to announce victory over the Persians. A distance of roughly 26 miles. And in fact, the first several Olympic marathons were run at varying distances, somewhere between 25 and 26 miles, whatever the organizers felt made sense in their city. And that was only until the 1908 Olympics in London, when the royal family asked for the marathon to begin at Windsor Castle so they could watch. The distance of this point to the Olympic Stadium happened to be the 26.2 miles we know today. For some reason it stuck and was standardized in 1921 as the official marathon distance. It truly doesn't get more arbitrary than that. And it doesn't matter, because everyone who runs a marathon agrees that this is the distance they're all running. The distance of a marathon, the way the pieces move in chess, the value of each letter in Scrabble, the rules to literally any sport or game or competition are all arbitrary, and that's just fine. So whether it be a debate over which arbitrary Ocarina of Time version should be speedrunnable, or if the BioShock Infinite guys agree that they're going to arbitrarily eliminate a 1 in 50 luck element, and arbitrarily redefine this new category over top of the existing any percent category, and if the competitors of this game generally agree on these rules, no matter how many others may view this as cheating or taking an easy way out, instead of options like working around it or finding a new route, or figuring out how to manipulate RNG if possible, then that's their own choice. And just like every other competition or game with rules, which are always arbitrarily defined, the agreement of the competitors is all that matters. But there's a second side of the coin we need to take a look at. And that side is the slippery slope. If we allow this sort of removal of luck factors in a speed game, where will we draw the line? Are we going to just edit out any unfavorable part of a speedrun altogether? Aren't those what makes speedrunning great in the first place? The way one has to gain the skill to be consistent enough, strong enough, that when the random elements do come into place, you can take advantage of it, be clutch enough to not choke it away, and complete the record speedrun? There certainly is discussion to be had on what exactly are healthy elements of luck or randomness. You know, things like skill in navigating a boss fight, for example, where the boss's moves are random, is obviously healthy randomness to throw in a game. And it's easy enough to see that a 1 in 50 required item drop is just dumb luck rather than anything involving skill. But where's the line? 1 in 40? 1 in 20? 1 in 10? In Jarko's video detailing the decision, he seems to suggest that the Hill Runner's Hat luck is the line.
Proto and Penta, who are against the HRH mod, argue that if we use HRH mod, Why don't we also mod it so every box we check gives exactly what might be useful during that part of the run? And they aren't wrong. While we're at it, we could just make a mod that makes super jumps, elevators, and rail boosts all consistent. But we shouldn't, so we won't. If we just make HRH mod allowed and be responsible, we won't ever have to talk about modding further. There is no real reason to mod more. We've all grinded out a good HRH spawn, and we shouldn't have to. We can all agree that HRH RNG is just horrible. It keeps us from reaching the common goal of seeing how fast we can play through BioShock Infinite.
But you can't possibly predict the future. What if in the future there's some new massive tech found or paradigm shift, the route completely changes, and there's another similar item drop required to get the record that way? What if that drop has a 1 in 25 chance instead? Will it be modded out then? This decision does set a precedent that anything that comes up in the game that is both unfavorable with a high chance of ending a run and reduces the number of runners who want to play the game should be modified out. And it could be a dangerous one if this type of decision is universally adopted by the wider speedrun community. This decision would have received a lot more buzz if, for example, it were done in a more popular speed game like Ocarina of Time 100%, modifying the Dampe heart piece, something runners can lose several minutes on 2 hours into a 4-hour run, to ensure it always comes out on the first try. This might even be a more reasonable example of luck that should be modified out, if that's what we're going to start doing, as the Dampe heart piece serves literally no purpose other than to end great runs. Modding Ocarina of Time 100% to always drop the heart piece first try probably would make it overall a more healthy speed game, and we would see the personal records of many of the top players fall at a pace much faster than before. In fact, we've sort of already seen this in another popular speed game, Super Mario 64. Cannonless was a trick that, while not RNG, was precise beyond the scope of human consistency, making it feel luck-based. We should really coin a name for that type of thing, maybe HIP for humanly impossible precision. But anyways, when a consistent setup for Cannonless was finally discovered by Sockfolder in October 2014, we saw not only consistent, frequent improvements of the world records in 120 and 70 star, but a flattening out of the top 10 in both categories, where everyone's times got closer and closer together, which naturally increased competition, and with that, desire to play the games. The difference between 1st and 10th place in 120 star was more than 4 minutes before consistent Cannonless was found, and now it's less than 3 minutes. It's not like Super Mario 64 was a dead speed game before, but once Cannonless became consistent, it became a lot more enjoyable to play for many people. So this is living proof that removing a random element in a speed game can do what the BioShock community are hoping this does: revitalize interest in the game and increase competition. It might be my old school perspective on this all, but to me, speedrunning in a nutshell is basically playing the game as if you just bought it from the store, opened the case, put it into your console, turned it on, and go see how fast you can beat the game. Any sort of modification beyond that just feels cheap or unnatural. Now, that's not to say modifications can't still be speedrunning. Of course, like I argued earlier, so long as the competitors agree on the rules, the competition is still fair. So this leads into the last bit of discussion around the situation. Why not just make it its own category? And it seems the main reason the BioShock Infinite community isn't making it its own category is because of concerns that no one will play it. Apparently, gearless was a category that was created, banning any gears whatsoever from being used, so the route and run used a number of different strategies than any percent, and with that, eliminating the need to get the rare Hill Runner's Hat luck, but very few people played it. Why? I always find it strange how speedrunners think there's some innate need for the any percent category to be both the fastest category and the most commonly played. There are plenty of examples that show games can be competitive and popular if otherwise. Link to the Past's any percent is a 1-minute run, so most of them run no major glitches. Super Mario 64's 0 and 1 star runs are nowhere near as popular as the other categories. I do think if the BioShock Infinite guys kept the Hill Runner's Hat mod category separate from any percent, it would get a lot of traction and possibly become the main category in the game. All it takes are a couple of strong, confident, and reasonable runners to be persistent in the runs of a category and demonstrate to the community why the category they're playing should be a main category of that game. This reminds me of when Breath of the Wild came out, and right away it was discovered that using an amiibo was faster in speedrunning, which notably Narcissa Wright and Seth Bling didn't like. And while the two of them did protest and share their views on why any% shouldn't use an amiibo, they relented to the others, and using amiibo became the main any% category for a while. Today, the Breath of the Wild leaderboards do have a really easily accessible toggle between amiibo and no amiibo has more runs submitted. So while slower, I think it is fair to call no amiibo the main category, but I often do wonder how Seth and Narcissa lost the great amiibo debate and couldn't establish this right off the bat, avoiding what became a firestorm of controversy, culminating in Narcissa cutting ties with speedrun.com and removing times from the leaderboards. You don't have to necessarily have a large reach or influence to accomplish this either, as I'm sure Jarko himself is finding out. No matter what side you're on, amiibo or no amiibo, Hill Runner's Hat mod or no mod, if you have a vision for something, or some way you can improve your speed game, making it more fun, interesting, exciting, pure, whatever it may be, just go for it. I so often see people upset about certain rules or categories they disagree with in their games. Make your own, and if you're scared no one will care about them, make them care. If there's one thing to take away from this situation, it's that you, no matter how small or powerless you feel, in not just a speed game, but any community, can influence a change for the better. Show them why you're right, be exciting and interesting, and share with the world why the category or rule change or whatever it is you want will make your little corner of the world a better place. Jarko has worked really hard doing this in BioShock Infinite, and from what I can tell, this speed game seems better off today than it was before the change. And if you're still caught up about the modification being included in the regular any% category, the speedrun.com leaderboard has some really clean toggles and rankings for the new categorization, so it should be pleasing enough to navigate no matter what side you're on. So what do you think? Are the BioShock Infinite community cheating themselves and setting a dangerous precedent that will ultimately lead to the elimination of any unwanted luck and RNG in speedrunning? Or is it worth it because it's a healthy change for the better, which makes the game more enjoyable and exciting? Let me know in the comments. I do read them all, honestly, scrolling through my phone before bed or while taking a rest in the restroom, you know what I'm saying? My last few vids have had some pretty lively debate in the comments, and I always do like hearing from people who have different views than myself. I also have to give a huge shout out to Jarko. He was really keen to share information about BioShock Infinite and get the word on this change out there, and I learned a lot about this pretty cool speed game. All the BioShock footage you saw in this video today was his, so definitely check out his YouTube and Twitch if you want to see more of this speed game. Especially now, it's sure to be exciting with many new records being set thanks to the Hill Runner's Hat mod. Thank you for watching, you're truly remarkable, and I really appreciate all the love and livelihood lately. You know, it's a really exciting time for speedrun content on YouTube. I think 2018 is going to be amazing, so thanks for subscribing, following on Twitch, and enjoying what we're putting out there. As always, my friends, stay true, and I'll see you in the next stream or video.